kind introduction of all the panelists today. And I very much hope for an interesting debate today. Let me provide first a very short overview of our discussion. The period of the COVID-19 has impacted heavily on our economies. The EU Recovery and Resilience Fund is planned to mitigate negative impact of the pandemic and to boost our investment in key economic sectors. One of the pillars of the RRF is dedicated to strengthening digital transformation within the EU. Digital transformation walks hand in hand with the necessity to establish adequate cybersecurity solutions. Many EU member states, including Poland, decided to develop cybersecurity capacity programs within the framework of national recovery plans. There are several questions that need to be raised. How to use the available funds effectively and how to implement those national recovery plans. Should we focus on national projects only, or member states should also use this opportunity to develop multi-country projects? Moreover, will there be enough EU funds for all cybersecurity projects? And let me start from Mr. Martin Ubelhor from the European Commission. The first question to you, Martin. The EU has many important instruments to offer to boost cybersecurity investment. It is committed to supporting the new cybersecurity strategy with notably the Digital European Programme and Horizon Europe, as well as the Recovery and Resilience Facility. If you could please give us or guide us through the cyber-related components of these programs. How will we as Europeans benefit from these new initiatives?
Good afternoon, Aleksandra. Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, the opportunity to speak to you here today, be on this panel, and thank you, Aleksandra, for this question. Of course, cybersecurity has become a really first order priority for the European Commission across the different, let's say, policy areas that the EU is working on and active. Just to mention a few of the, let's say, overall objectives that we have here formulated in our latest cybersecurity strategy. We need to create further resilience and increase capacity building and awareness with all the companies and all the citizens in Europe. And this goes from really, large and capable enterprises or institutions, whatever, operators of critical infrastructures, down to SMEs and down to individual citizens and public administrations. We also see that we need to further boost operational cooperation between different authorities and between different teams actually responding to cybersecurity incidents. We want to boost the European presence in technology value chains. We have excellent researchers and we have an excellent scientific base here in Europe, but too often, the large companies exploiting, let's say, the know-how and benefiting from cybersecurity, the cybersecurity market, are companies that originate outside Europe. We also want to create more skilled workforce, so high-end cybersecurity experts that can actually work on dealing with incidents and preparing against incidents in the different entities that I just mentioned. So these just a few kind of high overall priorities that we have formulated. You're most likely, the colleagues in the audience will be familiar with the overall, let's say, main policy actions and laws and regulations that we have in place to further this. I already mentioned our new cybersecurity strategy, the NIS directive that we proposed to update. We made the proposal last December. You're probably familiar with the 5G security toolbox, the Commission proposal for the Joint Cyber Unit, and the proposal for a cyber shield consisting of a network of cybersecurity operation centers across the EU. And last but not least, and this is what we're discussing here today, investment. So EU investment from different programs and from different, managed in different ways. But what they have in common is that we want to strengthen cybersecurity, and we want to streamline our cybersecurity policy objectives into the different EU programs. And I'll speak a bit more on the Digital Euro program, the Horizon Euro program, but I will also obviously, and then RF, but I will also just want to mention here the regional funds and programs such as InvestEU, where we're also trying to make sure that our different policy instruments are being reflected. So the Digital Euro program is a new program. It's centrally managed by the Commission. It aims at achieving most of the high-level objectives that I just mentioned. So we will have topics, and we'll make funding available for a network of cybersecurity operation centers, 5G security, the general uptake of the latest cybersecurity know-how, and upgrading of let's say, of standards and processes. We have a special topic on cybersecurity in the healthcare sector. We're still living in times of COVID. And we're supporting, the relevant, legislation and other policy instruments, such as, again, the NIS directive, but also the recently adopted Cybersecurity Competence Center and Network regulation, which creates a network of national coordination centers, which will in turn support the cybersecurity ecosystems in the different member states. Let me also shortly mention the quantum communication infrastructure project, where we plan to set up an infrastructure which will create hyper-secure communication possibilities using this complete new quantum technology. And we will invest in skills. We'll invest, for example, in master's programs or professional traineeships focusing on cybersecurity. Horizon Europe, very briefly, again, reflecting cybersecurity policy objectives. We'll invest in the security, the latest tools, development of new tools for secure digital infrastructures, hardware and software, supply chain management, the use of artificial intelligence, the implementation of the latest cryptography standards, assurance and certification methods, and last but not least, all things around the human factors, privacy, and ethics. These are the two main programs, these will be centrally managed by the EU. In the case of Digital Europe, most of these, the project can be single beneficiary projects, or they can be consortia. For Horizon Europe, it's typically multi-country, multi-beneficiary consortia projects. Let me also just briefly mention again the Cybersecurity Competence Center, which we're currently building up in Bucharest. And once the center has been built up, we in the Commission, we will actually delegate the management of these funds to this new center in Bucharest. But now to RF. COVID has been an awful crisis, but it's also an opportunity to reinvent ourselves a bit. And we have been incredibly encouraged by the European Council's decision that 20% of this massive budget is to go into digital transformation. So 20% out of 672 billion euros. That's an awful a lot of opportunity to boost our digital posture. And we have been working, of course, with the member states in order to make sure that, again, cybersecurity is well addressed, and that our cybersecurity policy objectives are reflected. I think we can see that in the Polish case. I think this has been taken extremely seriously. We understand that in the Polish case, the RRP, the plan, foresees investment in CERTs, so computer emergency response teams, in ISACs, information sharing and analysis centers, and security operations centers. So we applaud that general, objective to use RF to actually strengthen cybersecurity. Allow me a last word, please, on the security operations centers specifically. This is an important concept. It's important for us in the Commission. You can see that from the emphasis that we put on it in our new strategy. We also witness Poland as kind of a front runner in this. So we see that this SOX concept has been really taken up in the resilience and recovery plan. In particular, we find it interesting that this plan of a network of regional SOCs within Poland. So we're closely following this. I think something to be further explored would be opportunities for cooperation beyond the national borders around SOCs. Of course, it's a matter of trust. When it comes to operational cooperation in cybersecurity, we see often reluctance to work, in a framework of 27 member states. But nevertheless, I would like to urge, the colleagues working on this to explore the possibility of cross-border cooperation. And it doesn't have to be in a framework of 27. It can be in a framework of, the group of the Visegrad countries to start with. So please think the next step, think beyond the national border, think of how to actually get the bigger impact out of the project by connecting with others. And with that, I would like to thank you again for the questions and for the attention and for the opportunity to be here today.
It's really nice to hear that Poland is considered a front runner in cybersecurity. And let me address the second question to Mr. Robert Kośla. Poland's National Recovery Plan contains comprehensive cybersecurity capacity program. It is centered around strengthening cyber resilience of information systems used by entities forming part of the national cybersecurity systems, ensuring business continuity of critical infrastructure and digitization of the early warning and alert system in Poland. What is the justification for such a choice of priorities in this program? How does this National Recovery Plan translate into developing cyber defense capabilities in Poland?
Thank you very much for this question. Of course, the initiatives and projects that we planned to be covered from the recovery plan, from the Polish recovery plan, is the part of three-step action. The first action to develop our cybersecurity capabilities, it's actually covered in REACT-EU funds. So the funds that I believe my colleagues will also cover this was seen as emergency funds that can be immediately used to increase cyber resiliency across local and regional governments. So, of course, pandemic period showed quite clearly that this is the most vulnerable infrastructure and the closest infrastructure to citizens. So this is the area where we need to invest at the first time, at the first place. So the major projects from React-EU as a foundation, what's more, we will continue those projects initiated in the phase of React-EU. So within next 12 months, we will continue to implement them and extend them using the recovery fund. So those projects like projects related to the connectivity between local and regional governments and infrastructures managed by local and regional governments, at least water supply, hospital, local hospitals, connectivity into the system that it's operational from the 1st of January this year, the system called S46, the system that is that was built by NASK on behalf of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. This is the statutory task based on the law on the national cybersecurity system, the system that helps to report incidents and that also is used on the opposite side to distribute information about recommendations and about guidelines by CSIRTs operating at the national level. So at least this will be the first round of operational support for local and regional governments, but in many cases there was a major problem was a lack of situation awareness and a lack of information about current cyber threats and how to mitigate them at the lowest level. So the first project will be we will support connectivity and connection access to S46 system for local and regional governments. The second initiative will be related to the project that is again based on the or the worst practices from the last year and this year. Of course, the wave of ransomware attacks against local and regional governments, against hospitals. You could hear in the morning from the Marshal of Małopolskie that also this organization was targeted by ransomware attack. So we developed the tool set and also a specific package, I may say, the package of capabilities that will be delivered by the project Krojot. This is the first responder, cyber first responder incident response and also data recovery, because in case of ransomware attacks, the major need is not to really investigate how it happened, but really to recover the data, really to regain the system capabilities, because in many cases, like what we've seen in local and regional governments, those attacks, ransomware attacks, impacted the most 5 critical functions operated by local and regional administrations. So, of course, social funds, at least taxes, local taxes. So that's why it's so important actually to shorten the time that is needed for recovery. So we will work with them dedicated team of rescuers, dedicated team of very skilled and experienced experts involved in the ransomware mitigation. By the way, Minister Cieszyński mentioned today about some attacks in US, about Colonial Pipeline. We've seen the attacks against healthcare system in Ireland. In those 2 cases, Poland was very active, and we share our best practices how to recover the data in such major scale attack. And so those two major projects are actually focused on local and regional governments, and what Martin has mentioned, the project related to regional security operations centers. So this is something that we developed, the concept we developed as a continuation of the effects and the products of RecSoc project that was funded within the program of Cybersec Ident from National Research and Development Center funds. And this project was delivered, this project was led by Technical University of Wrocław. Right now we can use the product of this project to be deployed. And in the first phase of React-EU, we are going to implement RegioSoc project in Dolnośląskie Voivodeship. And of course to cover the local and regional government structures and also subordinated services by this first deployment, and continue this project by the National Recovery Plan. Within, of course, a National Recovery Plan, and I can say that initial planning for this plan was made last year when we started to talk with colleagues from Ministry of Finance how to extend the operational program of Digital Poland, what to develop. So we even didn't know about the recovery fund at the European level will be available. So we made some planning actually what to do, and we defined the major areas that are mapped to national cybersecurity strategy. So it's not a set of some projects that we just developed. In 2018, we introduced law on national cybersecurity system. A year later, we introduced the new national cybersecurity strategy for 2019-2024. This strategy set major goals, like to increase the effectiveness of national cybersecurity system. So, of course, we immediately mapped the initiatives and programs under the National Recovery Plan with this first strategic goal to increase effectiveness of national cybersecurity system. What does it mean? Because it's easy to say to increase effectiveness. If we can increase effectiveness by additional operational structures like sectoral CSIRTs. So this is something that we also propose as an amendment to NIS directive, also to consider this concept to increase capabilities and build sectoral CSIRT that are equipped with sectoral knowledge and much better can respond and can work with operators of essential services in a specific sector. So first, we are going to equip, to invest in those 6 sectoral CSIRTs. By the way, one of them was created last year that was for financial institutions and banking sector. So we are going to use this best practice actually created already in Poland. Second, the structures already mentioned by Martin, so security operation centers. Security operation centers that are essential for operators of essential services because they are on the first line of incident response and incident handling. So that's why, of course, utilizing the knowledge and also some guidance developed by ENISA last year and published in December about SOX and ISAC, we are going to support the most strategic security operations center supporting strategic operators of essential services. And finally, also by the amendment of the law on national cybersecurity system, we introduce officially and formally ISAC, so information sharing and analysis centers, as a concept of not direct operational support, but of course to build better situation awareness and to increase capabilities of all the stakeholders of national cybersecurity system. So of course, financial support for those organizations will be included in the national recovery plan. And finally, of course, the component related to OT systems. So of course, this is something that was missed and also missed partially in NIS, in the current version of NIS directive. But of course, we are included this for the amendments of the NIS directive in NIS 2. So we are going to also focus and include the cybersecurity and increased resiliency of OT systems, so operational technology, industrial control systems, and we are talking about Industry 4.0. So, by the way, one of activities by the group of cybersecurity was creation of the handbook. Handbook will be announced quite soon, so I will not spoil the details of this handbook, but this is the first handbook about industrial security in Europe, so we will be happy also to share it with other countries and also European structures. So those are the major areas where we are going to invest in recovery plan, and I told about 3 levels, so REACT-EU, recovery plan, and of course, the European funds for digital development. So this is the area where we will continue some projects and we will enrich some projects initiated with REACT-EU and then deployed within recovery fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive answer, touching upon not only national recovery plan, but let's stay focused on that. And I would like to address the next question to Mr. Rafał Sukiennik. Cybersecurity is the cornerstone of Poland's national recovery plan, but it is also addressed in the national operational programs, including FERDS, European Funds for Digital Development 2021-2027. And the latter one provides for investment to increase the level of information security by strengthening resilience and the ability to effectively prevent and respond to incidents in the information systems of the state and entities of the key importance for the national economy. How does these 2 programs relate to each other?
Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel. In fact, the cybersecurity projects will be financed from 3, not from 2, but from 3 various sources in the EU fund system. The first one and the richest one will be, of course, the National Recovery Plan for Poland. but we also have the program European Funds for Digital Development for years 2021-2027. It will be the new digital program as a part of the cohesion policy. And another one, new additional priority axis in the OP Digital Poland, financed from REACT-EU. It is the new instrument called also the Next Generation EU. Each of above mentioned sources of financing has different specificity. I mean, there is a different period when funds will be available, the scope of possible intervention, and the different requirements for the organization and so on. The richest source will be the National Recovery Plan. Here we have under this plan 443 million euro, a lot above the project told us Director Kośla, but maybe I repeat. There will be infrastructure projects firstly. It will be cybersecurity project, Cyber.pl, infrastructure for data processing, optimization of the infrastructure of law enforcement services, and under thirds, the new program under cohesion policy, we will have 200 million euro, and here we plan in the close cooperation with the Department of Director Kośla, R&D projects to provide the most modern solutions to be implemented in the entities of the national cybersecurity system. We foresee also here building and developing a national cybersecurity certification system. And under this program, we also see projects relating to information exchange and analysis centers. And the last one source, it will be REACT-EU. We here see three projects, RegioSoc. Another one project, cyber incident handling, and the last one, Cybersecurity S46 project connecting selected entities, including units subordinate to local governments, And for the REACT-EU instrument, we have 67 million zloty. What we are doing now, we conduct activities related to the creation of the so-called demarcation mechanism between all those three sources, and the first one is that all these projects will be, we assume, implemented by one implementing body. It will be Centrum Projektów Polska Cyfrowa. Another mechanism for demarcation will be cross-checking controls and monitoring system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your answer. And so you mentioned the CBBC. So I have another question addressed to Mr. Wojciech Szajnar. Do the specificities of cybersecurity projects require a different approach to their implementation? How to implement cybersecurity projects effectively in the new perspective based on the experience of the operational program Digital Poland 2014 and 2020 implementation?
Thank you very much. We have been implementing IT projects in public administration for a number of years, and we have gathered a number of experiences that some of them are specific in general for IT projects, and some of them are specific to cybersecurity projects. If you look at the general specificities of IT projects, that are financed from EU funds or that can be translated into future projects in the area of cybersecurity, I would number a few specific questions. First of all, is you have to be very sure about the needs of the users, because when you look at the IT projects in public administration, there are many projects that are implemented not in contrary, but without knowing the real needs of the users. That's why their implementation tends to be very long and not necessarily very necessary. You don't need to change. I mean, you have to be sure what you want to achieve in this project. You don't change those projects because if you look at EU specifics, you have procedures, you have procurements, you have a limited time for implement projects. In future perspective, we'll have N+2 principle for cohesion policy, and we have a limited date of implementation for projects for national recovery plans. So you cannot roll these projects into the future, and you have to have a finished date. So you can't really change much what you want to achieve. The third question is you need to be flexible, because what will happen during the implementation of the projects will always surprise you, and we've seen that a number of times, and we've seen projects that had to be finished before being implemented because of the lack of flexibility. You have to have a good legislation, because sometimes the projects or their feasibility or their utility will depend on good legislation that will be implemented in place or in time, because there are many situations or many examples of projects that are implemented without the proper legislation. So their utility cannot be implemented right now. So they have to wait. If you look at the specific projects that are implemented, the simpler or the smaller the projects are, there is a more possibility that they will be finished. If you think about complexity of the projects, you have to understand the better is the enemy of the good. So you have to, sometimes you have to implement solutions step by step, or projects step by step. You don't have to think about making a substantial change with one project. Sometimes you have to wait and take it step by step. So the simplicity, maybe smaller projects, but those projects that can be finished are better than huge multi-partner or multi-dimension projects that are too complicated to manage in the realities of public administrations, public procurement, and so on. So you obviously have to also avoid vendor lock-in. It was a common problem a number of years ago. It tends to be a smaller problem right now, but you have to understand that this always can happen, and you have to be very careful about that for the future. So it's about this. So those are the basic specifics of IT projects financed from EU funds that I think can be translated into cyber security projects. But when you look at cybersecurity as a specific area of knowledge of IT projects, then I have 4 specifics that come to my mind that would I would recommend for the final beneficiaries or implementing institutions to take into account. First of all, you have to think about cybersecurity from the very beginning of the project. So when you're developing solutions, developing products, cybersecurity has to be implemented or has to be taken into account at the very beginning of the project, at the very beginning of developing every single solution in the project. That's one thing. The second thing is you have to, when you think about cybersecurity, it's not only IT solutions, but it's also processes, procedures, people. So you have to, I think that in most cases, transform processes, organizational processes, or at least change them so they would reflect the reality of cybersecurity threats. And you have to use up-to-date technologies, the most modern technologies. That's obvious with the area that's changing so fast as cybersecurity. The third thing would be to include partners, regulators, users. So you have to make sure that you include all the stakeholders of the project so that that what is implemented is desired and it reflects the needs of the people that will use it in the end. And the fourth, but I think the most important, but I left it as a last but not least, is the education. So you cannot implement a cybersecurity project without properly educating people. When you think about cybersecurity threats, the human factor is probably the most important factor. You can have up-to-date technologies, you can have great IT solutions, but it's always the simple error or simple mistake of a person that uses the technology that makes these systems vulnerable to any threats. So education as and constant education as a requirement of every single project is the last but not least, obviously, and probably the most important part of experiences of our IT projects that would reflect to cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your perspective on the implementation of IT projects, including cybersecurity related projects. We need now know how to implement, but how can we benefit from these new initiatives? And my next question is addressed to Mr. Michał Kanownik. What opportunities can new funds related to cybersecurity offer to business? How can the National Recovery Plan boost innovation in cybersecurity and privacy systems in Polish companies?
Thank you very much. We have not so much time, so briefly I will focus on a few, in my opinion, very important things in our discussion about how to use this chance for business right now. For sure, with our discussion, we can say that for sure we will have a huge amount of money to spend in Europe next few years to rebuild our economy, to build a real digital economy in Europe. And for sure, in every investment project in recovery fund or in general in Europe, it's impossible without cybersecurity. So frankly speaking, this cybersecurity element will be very important in every project, not only in a project dedicated for cybersecurity in these funds. But before spending this money on cybersecurity products, we have to remember about one very important and crucial thing about that. I agree about education. We have to think about level of knowledge about cybersecurity in every part of our economy, from schools via local administration, via SMEs, and finally public administration. Without this awareness, this knowledge about cybersecurity, how it's important for our development in the future, it's impossible to rebuild a real digital economy after pandemic time in Europe. So first, we have to find funds for education, for building knowledge, for building awareness about cybersecurity in every part of our economy. Second thing, we have to think about the future, not only about products which are on the market right now. So we have to think how to spend this money for R&D, for building in new products, new services for the future, not only for today. What's next? In recovery funds in Europe, we have two options. Some countries much more money will spend via public sector. Some countries via private sector. Of course, money which will be spent on private sector are very important, especially on cybersecurity. We have to teach them how to use this money to spend in efficient. But I think the crucial is this money which we spend on public sector, how to spend this money in efficient way, how to use this money to build new European companies, European products in this area. So public administration should use and create a special program in public procurement to build a real cybersecurity criteria in these funds. And we think, if we think as an industry, in the digital industry of our part of Europe, that we have to find some way how to spend this money on cybersecurity products, on digital products, to help European local companies to win on these funds, on this COVID situation. We have to support some ideas. For example, Polish cluster made cyber in Poland. I think that we have to build these kind of clusters in every country in our region, or maybe we should think about regional clusters in this area. And the last, my opinion, it's about cooperation, not only in one country, but to use these funds to build a real digital economy and a safe digital economy for the future. We have to create regional programs, regional cooperations in area cybersecurity especially, because we can't build a safe economy, digital economy, only in one country. We have to think about cybersecurity in a regional way. So that's why we have to cooperate together as V4 countries, as 3Cs countries, to build regional programs to spend this money from recovery funds, from different funds from European Union, much more efficiency. So, because we have no time, 5 words for the future: education, awareness, R&D centers, and helping the companies in building new products for the future, public procurement and cybersecurity criteria, and public and building regional cooperation programs in this area. Without these points, I'm afraid that economies of our countries won't be able to use in 100% these funds from recovery and to rebuild in our economy.
Thank you very much. We exceeded the time limits. I just want to thank all the panelists for a lively and interesting debate. And have a good day. Thank you. Bye.